I want to pay tribute to Emily Dickinson today because her life and poetry has had an impact on mine, specifically her love and mastery of nature, her unconventional prose, and the lasting legacy that she helped build. As a student, Emily began her courtship with nature with an herbarium, and at the end of her life, she would have collected almost 500 different specimens. When I learned this information in middle school, it led me to create my own herbarium, though not as prolific as Emily's. I have a picture here of Emily's herbarium from the Harvard Library collection. Emily's poetry often contained images of nature, specifically birds and flowers. The following poem is a great representation of that and one of my favorites. A sepal, a petal, and a thorn, upon a common summer's morn, a flask of dew, a bee or two, a breeze, a caper in the trees, and I'm a rose. So what made Emily different? Her poetry was unconventional for the time. Her use of dashes and capitalization was unique to her prose. While alive, Emily only saw 10 of her poems published, and those were heavily altered to fit the standards. The editing continued after her death, with family members often editing her poetry before publishing. The fact that Emily was not alive to publish her own works means that we don't know what the final draft would have looked like. One of the first books of Emily's poetry was published by a family friend and heavily altered. And extensive work has been done to recover the originality of Emily's poems. In her later years, Emily became more solitary. On occasion, she would host guests and sometimes even travel, but most of her time was spent alone in her house and eventually alone in her room. So much so that her reputation around town became that of a recluse. And that still is her reputation today for a lot of people. That's all they know about her. She spent a significant period of time copying and arranging her previously written poems into booklets or fascicles. In all, she created over 40, some on loose sheets, some merely papers folded in half, and some were hand sewn. Her desire to organize and preserve her works are much of the reason why we can still enjoy them in their original state today. This need that Emily had to preserve her works is somewhat at odds with accounts that Emily also asked family members to burn her papers after her death, a wish that was carried out, with many of Emily's poems and letters being set ablaze. Her desire to both be known and unknown are one of the special attributes that really draws me to Emily, and I think it's seen well in this poem. This is my letter to the world that never wrote to me, the simple news that nature told with tender majesty. Her message is committed to hands I cannot see. For love of her, sweet countrymen, judge tenderly of me. Emily's life has been the subject of many tributes, some more detailed than mine, for reasons similar: her love of nature, her unique prose, and her legacy. The thread that runs throughout all these things is that Emily wrote of life and death with sincerity. She also wrote of loneliness. And I too have felt alone. But when I read Emily's poetry, I feel hopeful. So I want to end with this poem. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without words and never stops at all. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. I want to give a special thank you to the Amherst College, the Harvard Library and the Emily Dickinson Museum for the amazing preservation of Emily's works.